Welcome to Relative Flow, productizing your customer feedback program. I'm Ollie, Head of Product, and I'm joined here by Phil, our CTO and founder of Relative Insight. Phil and I are going to walk you through Relative Flow, some of the problems that Relative Flow solves with data management, manipulation for analysis. And then we're going to move into a fireside chat, followed by Q&A.
Okay, thanks, Ollie. So I just want to kick things off by, first of all, describing a little bit about what we do at Relative Insight, and also about our background and history. So at Relative Insight, we're a text analytics platform. And what this means is we're able to analyze and visualize your unstructured text data and be able to unlock the value that data contains, which went previously untapped. Now, we haven't always applied our technology to the business world. Our kind of background and origins is actually in law enforcement. And the technology we built was conceived as part of a UK research project between a set of UK universities and UK law enforcement agencies. And the technology which we built as part of that project was able to analyze and compare online conversations. And what we were able to do with that technology is identify genuine children in these conversations and people masquerading and pretending to be children. And we were able to do this by building a very sophisticated comparative linguistic approach, which could compare language and identify the subtle yet important differences in those language sets. And so our tool was able to, for example, tell if someone was a genuine 13-year-old girl or someone doing a very sophisticated impression of one. We've since taken this same underlying technology and we now apply it to the business world. So now we apply it, for example, we do a lot of work with consumer analytics. So we're able to understand audiences, consumers, and trends. We also do a lot of work with customer experience teams and analyze and unlock the various insights which the data those teams produces contains. So a little bit more specifically. So our technology is able to analyze data from, for example, surveys, so the open-ended text questions these contain. We can analyze social media data, reviews, and all the rich data which comes out of customer service teams. And what we're able to do with our comparative approach is to understand understand the reasons why you're seeing changes in key business metrics. So, for example, we're able to tell you reasons why, from analyzing this text data, why your NPS and CSAT scores might be going up and down. And what we want to talk to you today is when we've been working with customers in these various different domains, we've seen and trying to analyze this data, we've come across various barriers which kind of get in the way of our customers being able to unlock all the value which this type of data contains. So I'm going to quickly run through some of these kind of common barriers which we encounter when working with this data. And then Ollie is going to describe what relative flow is and how it can help to overcome some of these barriers. So the first kind of common barrier which we come across is around just getting hold of the data. So it's just like data silos and just then making it a lot more difficult to get hold of the data. So although a lot of great work is being done in terms of standardizing things like APIs to make accessing survey and review data a lot more accessible, we still see now that a lot of our customers still rely on importing and exporting that data via, for example, files. So this can be a particularly kind of time-consuming and error-prone task of being able to kind of get hold of that right data, download it, and then upload it into analytics platforms to be able to kind of access that data and unlock the value which it contains. As we'll hear from Ollie, relative flow can break down these silos and allow us to kind of ingest and move the data to relative insight so you can do your analysis and get to business value a lot quicker. kind of following on from this, another kind of common barrier and problem we see is around data pre-processing. So this is all about ensuring your data is in the correct format for it to be processed correctly and accurately. So for example, is your data correctly structured in terms of, for example, rows and columns, so that you can access that data and analyze it in the way you need to. This could also involve problems around metadata. So for example, if you're doing some time-based analysis, this is about ensuring all your timestamps, so for example, are in the right format to be sure they can be processed correctly. So again, if you're dealing with lots of data and lots of files, this can be a repetitive and time-consuming task. With relative flow, these tasks can be automated so that it can be made more efficient and applied on a repeating basis. So another kind of common problem we see is around data segmentation. So this is all around ensuring your data is correctly organized to be able to answer the kind of business question you want answering. So for example, when we're working with customer teams and they're doing surveys, one kind of dimension they always want to analyze is around understanding the difference between promoters and detractors. So you need to be able to kind of build segments around those kind of two different categories. So, I mean, that's just one example of like one dimension. We do a lot of work with customers and they want to do an analysis across a lot of different dimensions. So again, this can be a time-consuming task. With relative flow, this data segmentation problem can be easily overcome. And the final barrier we often see is around the data output side. So once you've done all this kind of great analysis and you've produced this insights, you need to be able to make sure that all that value is visible to the right audience and available to the right stakeholders so they can make those kind of key and important business decisions. So with relative flow, we're making sure that is compatible and supports the sharing of these analysis results. And we don't end up building kind of new silos where the kind of these insights and value is locked away.
Well, thanks, Phil. So now, what is relative flow? So I'm going to go into what it actually is. So relative flow is a series of components that automate various tasks. Think of this like building blocks that allow us to build out your flow and do all your data preparation and manipulation ready for analysis. Allows the ingestion of data from the sources within your organization. So whether that's a survey tool or a repository, we're able to go off and automatically get that data, whether it's a large or more frequent for data frequency of data loading, or you've got a large amount of data, such as maybe it's in Qualtrics. And then tasks. So basically these building blocks can be pulled together to make out these complex workflows simplified and automated. So you can just focus on reduce time to action. So you can focus on the analysis and allow the platform to take your data in, run the various data manipulation and preparation. So when you log into the platform, it's ready there for your insights. Then actually going into relative flow. So your data journey would start within your organization, so your CSAT and NPS of your continuous use case. And then we really go from, it could be in Moments or Qualtrics, or you've got it in a S3 bucket where you've got your data stored. And then we're able to then, based on your business requirements, is actually go off and fetch that data. And then the platform, this could be daily, this could be weekly based on your needs. It's a pulse survey or it's a monthly survey. Then we're able to take that data into the platform, run all the preparation, auto load it, preparation, and then it's just really ready for you to focus on the insights and then take those insights out to your stakeholders across your organization. So take those insights to your organizations, whether that's Power BI or Tableau, you're able to then have those updated as you go. So other benefits of relative flow. So you've got your reduce security risk. So part of the flow of automation means that, there's less need for, manually downloading files, potentially emailing those files, dropping into a Dropbox, other different people handling that data. There's, once it's set up, it's ready there to be transferred between your organization using secure file transfer or from one system into our platform. And you're certainly reducing more risky transfers, such as, maybe email. Removes data limits. You may have a large data size that you want to, or it's a very frequent data load that you wish to do. So it could be a pulse survey that you want to do daily or maybe even more frequently, or it's a large file that you've been collecting over over weeks, and then you want to load that into the platform. It will then come into the platform. And also, you're in control with schedule. You can schedule this to meet your needs, whether that is daily, weekly, monthly, or it's every quarter. Then we can actually work with you you can set that to meet your business needs. And then set and forget. And what this really means is that whole end-to-end flow from your organization's sort of your survey tool for your NPS CSAT, your repository comes into the platform. All of the data manipulation is managed, and then you've just got your insights, and then you can just focus on your insights and reduce your sort of time to insight.
Okay, so to, I guess, add a little bit more flesh to the bones, we're now going to talk about a couple of real use cases which we've used and customers have used relative flow to improve and increase their time to insight. So the first one I want to quickly talk about is we worked with a large US retailer who conducted a series of in-store and online surveys. So they had around 17 surveys which they wanted to report on with the data arriving on a daily basis. So this in itself would be a time-consuming task if you have to visit the survey platform, download the files, and then import it to Relative Insight manually. So instead, what they could use in conjunction with Relative Flow is configure their survey platform. So the data was pushed to us on a daily basis. Relative Flow would then pick up these files arriving. It would then analyze the files, and the data would be correctly organized according to their project and folder structure. The data would be ready and waiting for them to start beginning their analysis immediately. So interestingly with this customer as well, is that they had a slightly unusual reporting period, where their reporting period didn't quite align to kind of regular quarters. So rather than reporting on January, February, March, they wanted to report on February, March, and April. And with Relative Flow, what we're able to do is kind of arrange this data segmentation. So the data was kind of correctly aggregated together and segmented to align to their desired reporting period. So all this could be created within a single Relative Flow. So when the data arrived, all the comparisons the customer needed to do was correctly created in the platform and ready and waiting for them to begin their analysis. So they could get to the analysis support part of the process a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently. And so once all this was set up, there was absolutely kind of no human intervention necessary. It was literally kind of set and forget. The data would arrive and all the comparisons were ready and waiting for them.
Then go on to our next customer use case. So a well-known airline that wants to understand the key drivers causing positive and negative impact for their NPS scores. And they also wanted to look at the change across different segments within their data. A key focus being on passenger type, so first class, business class, economy, and understand the differences between promoters and detractors. Without Relative Flow, normally this would result in the task of creating data segmentation, many manual tasks. They would need to create then the needed comparisons, and then they would need to, before they could start the analysis. And now with Relative Flow, they're able to take that data in, understand promoters and detractors against those passenger classes, and then actually get straight into the analysis and spot, key drivers. This particular customer also wanted to do longitudinal analysis using our Heartbeat product. And this, we're able to look at the correlation between different themes within the data. And also with Relative Flow, it's also able to use across all of their product set, whether you're in Explore or Data Disco. So Relative Flow works alongside Heartbeat as well as our other products and allows you to have real-time data loads. So if you think about the process, so your data is coming in from your organization, your CSAT, your NPS, and it's coming into the platform, and then you're able to update Heartbeat in real time. So you've got those real insights into what is driving change within your customer experience. So to get started with Relative Flow, what's needed? So reach out to your account manager or go fill out a contact form on our website to reach out to teams to set up a session to discuss your Relative Flow needs. Then our team will work with you on the sort of implementation of Relative Flow and your requirements and the systems that you want to take it into the platform. We'll work with you on the sort of how frequently you need to load the data, the size of the data, and those requirements and those sort of end goals you're aiming for, that customer outcome you're aiming for in terms of those comparisons, so you can get those sort of you can understand what's driving your CSAT or your NPS scores. So reach out to the team and we can get started. So now we're going to go into our fireside chat part of the webinar. If you've got any questions, Q&A, just drop it in the Q&A and we'll come to those at the end of the fireside. So Phil, so we've touched on Relative Flow, so the problems we're looking to solve with Relative Flow, what we solve with Relative Flow, and what its capabilities are. So with Flow in mind, what data sources can be used?
Yeah. So first of all, just before I get into that kind of specific question, I think it's worth mentioning. So the underlying technology which we use at Relative Insight, it can be used across any type of language data. So regardless of the source, so it is data source agnostic. But in terms of Relative Flow more specifically, we see data coming in from a wide variety of sources. So at the moment, typically it is still kind of an automatic kind of file transfer, where these files would kind of come in automatically in the background, so via an SFTP or an S3 bucket. But we also can ingest data automatically via an API, or if you have an ETL kind of pipeline, we can also kind of tap into that. So it's kind of completely kind of a data source agnostic, and we can build the appropriate integrations for everywhere we need to kind of ingest the data from.
Oh, very good. And we've talked a lot about automation on this webinar. How long does it actually take?
So in terms of the turnaround of producing flows, I mean, it all depends upon like the precise needs. So for example, the example I talked about the US retailer and their use case of analyzing the surveys. So that's a pretty simple and straightforward use case. And so what we'd kind of typically see with that is once the work has been scheduled, with that we could see the turnaround in like 1 or 2 days. For example, with the US airline example, which you talked about, that's a little bit more kind of complex. So again, when the work has been scheduled, we expect a little bit of kind of a longer turnaround time. It all just depends upon the exact nature of the flow which needs to kind of be built and the complexities around it.
And then another area that's always front of mind for everyone is around security. As a customer, how secure is the data?
So by using Relative Flow, actually the data is more secure. So this is because it's removing the kind of complete kind of manual element from the process. So you're now no longer, for example, relying on like downloading a file and then storing it on your laptop, for example, and you forget that file's on your laptop and it just sits there forever. So it removes that whole kind of human element from it, and it removes the person from that. I mean, typically people are normally kind of the most insecure part of that whole step. So it removes like that manual part from it. All the data kind of arrives behind the scenes without any human touch points. So in that regard, it is a lot more secure. And we always use secure transfer mechanisms, so the data is always encrypted and kept secure.
Oh, great. We've touched on the Heartbeat product, but what other products from Relative Flow are compatible with Relative Flow?
So once the data has been ingested, although we might build a flow for a specific use case, so for example, you want to dig in certain segments, but once the data is there, you can use it across the entire suite of Relative Insight products. So yes, it's compatible with Heartbeat, as you've already mentioned, but you can use it as part of Explore, so you're not limited to just Heartbeat, but also kind of other parts of the platform as well. So for example, we've done automations around heat map. So the heat map product of the platform, we can create them automatically. So it's compatible with the entire kind of range of features we have in Relative Insight platform.
Okay, and we've talked about a lot about data in, so whether it's data coming from Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey, but the cadence, the sort of scheduling that data that be loaded, what is supported?
Basically, it can be customized dependent on a customer's need. So at the moment, we see like the whole range. I mean, typically, as I mentioned before, with the US retailer example, we saw their data coming in regularly on a daily basis. Typically, we see schedules around weekly or monthly. But if need be, if people need to react quicker to certain business situations, that data can come in more regularly. So, for example, hourly. So it all depends on the customer needs, but basically, a whole range of scheduling can be supported.
So, thinking about scheduling, so getting your data in, but I've got a large data set. What's the limitations on size?
So Relative Flow effectively removes any limits on the data size. I mean, it probably helps a lot more in terms of ingesting large data sets, because now the data can be loaded incrementally over time. You can chunk the data up into smaller parts and send that, for example, on a daily basis. So that the data set you have in Relative Insight platform can be built up gradually over time. But so that helps in terms of being able to chunk that data and spread that upload over a longer period of time. But if need be, we can still ingest much larger data sets than, for example, via the web UI we have at the moment.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about loading your data when you've got you choose a schedule, data, the size of data, the platform manages that for you, and then just generally, what are the limitations of Relative Flow?
So, I mean, the key thing to keep in mind when we kind of setting up a Relative Flow is having, I guess, that repetition. I mean, that's what it's trying to do, is trying to automate kind of those repetitive actions which our customers are taking in the platform. And so to be able to support that and be able to kind of keep that repetition consistent, what is important is that we do have like that data consistency. So for example, if you want to do some segmentation around a particular piece of metadata, that metadata is always present in the data which is arriving, to ensure that we can kind of correctly set up that segmentation and the data is kind of organized correctly to be able to perform that analysis customers want to do.
And then just finally, so as a user, can I set this up myself?
So currently, no, this is something which our data engineers have to do. But what we're seeing is we're kind of creating more of these relative flows, is certain common reoccurring kind of patterns which people want to achieve as part of relative flow. So what we're going to be looking to do throughout the course of the rest of this year is look at taking those kind of common parts of relative flow which we see happening in a particular use case. So around like NPS surveys, we're seeing repeating patterns there of common actions people want to do. So what we'll be looking is being able to make them available directly within the platform, so customers can take advantage of them themselves directly in the platform without having to rely on the data engineers to set them up for customers.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you, Phil. Now we're going to move on to the Q&A section. We've got some questions have come in. Do you want to take the first one?
So the question we have here is, are these the only data inputs and outputs that work with relative flow? So I think we might have already kind of touched upon this in one of the questions Ollie asked me in terms of like the data sources which are supported by relative flow. So the answer to that is no, we kind of support a whole range of data inputs and outputs. I think I guess the question this refers to is like the slide where we listed a few examples. So they're just examples, but we can extend that to any range of data source. It just depends on the needs of a customer.
Okay, and I can take the next one. So is relative flow a premium feature included as standard packages? What we can do is pass on contact details for Rachel, our VP of Sales, to reach out to you. And we'll share that in the chat.
So the next question we have here is can a relative flow be programmed to work with any type of reporting period, such as weekly? Again, I think we already kind of touched upon that in the fireside chat. So the answer is we can support any kind of reporting period. So it could be weekly, yes, as was asked in the question, but it could be daily, it could be monthly. Again, it's completely kind of configurable in that regard.
Okay, and next question. So when you talk about turnaround time, is it how long it takes to set up a flow, how long it takes to process data? So processing the data, as soon as we've set it up, say maybe it could be daily, it'll be processed on the platform and then be waiting for you on the platform for analysis. And then when it comes to actually implementation, reach out to us because we work with you on your requirements. You know, you've got whether it's a CSAT, an NPS, but we know what you really want to track against your promoters and detractors, you know, what outcome you're looking to. So I'd reach out, I'll drop in my details, and then, yeah, please reach out.
So the last question we have here is, can you provide more detail about how relative flow and Heartbeat work together? So first of all, I'll kind of describe what Heartbeat is before kind of getting to answering that specific question. So Heartbeat is our kind of time-based analysis product in the platform. And what this allows you to do is to track language changes over time. So you can identify certain topics and themes which you're interested in to monitor, and you can plot that in Heartbeat to kind of track that over time. So relative flow works, you know, it's probably perfectly suited for using Heartbeat, because with Heartbeat it's dated for this time-based series of data. What we can do with relative flow is set them up so that when your kind of new data arrives, it can be automatically added to Heartbeat, so that you can have like a live and real-time view of your data and how language is changing over time. So you no longer have to wait for like the analysis to complete and for Heartbeat to update it. Heartbeat will be updated and ready and waiting for you with all the latest data which we've analysed and added to Heartbeat.
I think we've come to the end. If there's any more questions people would like to ask, send them across or reach out to me, Oliver@relativeinsight.com.